Hello everyone, Jordan here, and today we've got another first impressions video for you guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at VerticalSim's Spokane International for X-Plane 11. For those that do not know, Spokane International is an airport that is approximately 5 miles away from downtown Spokane, Washington, and is the second largest airport or most busy airport in the state of Washington, followed behind SeaTac International. The airport is the 70th busiest airport in the United States, and it's not necessarily a very large airport, but it does see some pretty interesting service and traffic. Southwest Airlines and Horizon Air each own about 25% market share at Spokane International, followed by Delta, Alaska, and United. Seattle, Denver, and Portland are the top 3 destinations served from this airport. As you're aware, most of the airlines that operate here are regional services and not much real mainline service, with the exception of Southwest Airlines. In 2018, the airport saw approximately 4 million passengers travel through its gates. This product is priced at $15 and is available for purchase and download on the VerticalSim website, as well as their other sceneries such as Baltimore and Norfolk. Within this first impressions video, we're going to start with a positives, then move to a negatives, and conclude with a final thoughts segment. Without further ado, let's begin with the positives, shall we? As we begin the positive section, the first thing I'd like to mention is how great the performance is. Sometimes X-Plane sceneries, such as Aerosoft's DFW, aren't really too fond or kind on frames, and it can kind of be a little bit of a strain to fly in and out of. That is not the case here. Frames are pretty great, and as I loaded in the Jviation 737-800, which is, in my opinion, one of the most commonly used aircraft in the simulator, it performed great. I was able to move around fine, I didn't have any performance issues, and I believe that you can run this on a pretty mid-level, if not even a low-level PC, with no complications whatsoever. When I first loaded up the scenery, I thought to myself, that's it? But in actuality, the airport is like this, and that's something that I feel like is pretty interesting, and that is really well represented by VerticalSim. This airport is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and there's not a lot of action around it. There's no tall buildings, there's no big city, and I think VerticalSim kind of captures that rural feel very well. I do apologize for the contrasting colors you see at the border of this airport. This airport actually is designed to flow with True Earth and Ortho. I don't have either of those, so you're going to see a bit of a dividing line, but if you do have those products, this scenery will flow greatly. Well, not greatly, it'll flow very well. Despite the airport not necessarily being the most intricate airport in the world, VerticalSim have done a very good job recreating the actual interesting features that are present, such as having the parking garages fully modeled with actual 3D cars, modeling all the buildings, having PBR and dynamic lighting, and other very interesting features that really bring the airport to life. At night, you can really see the airport light up, and as I mentioned previously, it really brings the rural-like feel. Even though the airport is, again, in the middle of nowhere, the scenery is very well represented and is very accurate at night, and that's something I'm very proud of. Continuing on the segment regarding the night environment, Spokane International has a combination of LED and older style lighting. I really like the fact that VerticalSim has a combination of both, where you can see the very bright LED lights and the older technological lights as well on some of the older parts of the terminal. The very bright white lights, in contrast with the dark, more yellowish lights, are a very nice touch that makes the airport, as I mentioned previously, really come to life, because this is how real life works. Some scenery developers just, haphazardly place lights just for the sake of it, but this really shows that VerticalSim took a lot of attention to detail to make sure they had the correct lights and the correct placement. Very well done. Another aspect of the airport that I feel VerticalSim has excelled at, once again, is jetway and ground service vehicles. VerticalSim has often had really well done jetways that feel very realistic. As we all know, X-Plane isn't necessarily known for high quality jetways, but that is changing, and as I mentioned in my Norfolk review, VerticalSim is somewhat leading the charge, as well as some other senior developers, with high quality jetways that actually look very nice. Furthermore, ground service vehicles around the airport are very well modeled and very well detailed. Some airports, even in the prepared world, have very kind of lazy, if you will, modeled airport vehicles that aren't accurate or placed accurate or accurate to the airlines that operate out of the gates. However, this is not the case again with VerticalSim because they pay a lot of attention to detail. As you can see, this jetway is using SAM and is connected to my aircraft right here, the Jviation 737-800, and it flows pretty well. I have no complaints. The jetways are very nicely textured and they look very beautiful. I'm very pleased with the fact that VerticalSim took a lot of time to ensure that the jetways were very well modeled and looked stunning in the sim. Furthermore, 3D grass is placed around the airport to give it that extra notch of realism. I'm very pleased with it because some scenery developers completely forget and neglect to add features such as 3D grass, But by adding this, it makes the airport feel like it's a physical airport. In my opinion, just having a flat 2D texture, even if the grass is really short in real life, really takes away a lot of the immersion. And I like the fact that even though the grass is very small in the real world counterpart, VerticalSim has added at least some form of grass around the airport. Before we move to the next segment, I'd like to pinpoint and talk about the ground details of this airport. As we pass the taxiway and move to the apron, you can see little splotches of different coloration on the ground. This little detail and combination of 3D grass, again, really bring this airport to life. Some scenery developers kind of, cheat themselves out and just, don't do a full job on ground textures such as this. But VerticalSim have done a lot of great work here, and I'm very pleased. It looks like a worn airport that has seen a good amount of use and is not too clean but yet not too dirty. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our positive segment. We can now move on to the negatives. Now, as I mentioned in the positive segment, the airport is a rural airport. It isn't necessarily near a very big metropolitan city. However, there are a few things where I feel like the scenery developers could have a little more detail, if you will. There are some airports or parts of the airport where there are buildings that are present in the ground textures, but they're not actually physically modeled. Now, I do understand that modeling small little buildings around can kind of just be a waste of time. But in my opinion, when you model all of the extra buildings, it just feels more realistic, if you will. There's a few buildings over here, if I can zoom in on them actually, where you can see there's some buildings over there, but they're not modeled. And by not modeling them, it kind of just, takes away a little bit. In my opinion, I would prefer if even the small buildings like this were modeled, but again, it's not really a deal breaker in my opinion, since most, or at least a majority of the buildings have been modeled. Furthermore, while the terminal is well modeled, it isn't super high quality, and this necessarily isn't, again, a big make or break thing. After all, this scenery is only $15. You shouldn't have your expectations too high. However, this is just a simple 2D texture right here, which again isn't a real big problem, but it would be nice if there was at least an interior model, since a lot of scenery developers have now taken the stance of including a modeled interior. This kind of complaint, if you will, is especially noticeable when you look at some areas like right here. As you can see the light reflecting off of this, it looks kind of weird and feels like a plastic toy, if you will, with the roof right here. It's not much of a deal breaker. Most of the time users won't even notice this, but it just feels cheap, if you will, and it doesn't feel like a very high quality scenery. But then again, this is a $15 scenery, so you really shouldn't be expecting $30 flight beam But then again, this is a $15 scenery. It would feel a little odd to have the standards of a $30 scenery looking for something from Mr. X where he spends months and months of work, or Flightbeam where they spend, if not even years of development, where this scenery is made in less time, it's affordable, and it's really just kind of there to get the job done. So my criticisms are kind of nitpicky, if you will, but it's something nonetheless. Aside from my initial complaints, there isn't much more for me to really nitpick on. I'm very pleased with the scenery because, again, for $15, it gets the job done. Everything that you expect is there in a $15 scenery, if not more, and I'm pretty happy with that. With that being said, I guess we can move on to the conclusion with final thoughts. VerticalSim overall does a very well job representing and recreating Spokane International for X-Plane 11. While the airport is kind of in the middle of nowhere and there are some areas that could have a little more detail, the airport overall is very well done and I'm very pleased. For $15, I feel like this is honestly a steal, and I highly encourage that you look to purchase this scenery if you're looking for Spokane to be in one of your airports. With high quality jetway and terminal modeling, as well as excellent performance, this airport will certainly be an airport that I will fly into on my list. It will be a fun regional airport for those looking to fly in the Pacific Northwest region, and will be great for regional operations. Anyways, that'll pretty much do it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this first impression, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and smack the like button for more content like this in the future. If you'd like to check out the product page and other VerticalSim scenery, such as their latest Baltimore scenery, which looks stunning, you can check the link in the description to their webpage, and you can purchase this scenery and others for very, very affordable rates, if anything. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I'm Jordan, and I'll see you in the next episode.